was the best rapper of 2010 and 2011 and 2012. And get this, 2013 and 2014 and 2015 and 2016 and 2017 and 2018 and 2019 and 2021 and 2022, 2023 and 2023. So, 2010, easy pick. It's Kanye West. He released My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. It was the album of the year. There's not even close to another album that stacks up against it. It's an all-time classic at this point. I think it's a timeless album where if it dropped tomorrow and was a new album, it would still be just as relevant and big and as in focus as it was back then. On top of that, I feel like MBTF kind of has an Illmatic effect where people look at this album as just peak and as what you should strive for when making a musical project. Now, that doesn't mean I think it's as good as Illmatic. No, let's chill out there. But this does have some of Kanye's best songs as well. Runaway, Devil in a New Dress. And these aren't just Kanye's best songs, arguably, but they're some of the best songs the genre has ever seen. I think the production on this album is perfect, and the entire album would be perfect if it wasn't for Chris Rock. Also, just a quick warning, a little notice, I'm basing this off of Total Artistry, so that could include anything and everything, from rapping ability, but also, versatility, singing, impact, how attractive they are. Whoa! Don't say pause, because I'm going to say resume. 2011 was another very easy pick. I'm going with Drake, who released the album of the year that year in Take Care. You can throw in Watch the Throne as well, but I don't think that's quite as good as Take Care, which to this day is still my favorite Drake album. You can throw in If You're Reading This, It's Too Late, which is technically a mixtape, but whatever. But Take Care, it's such a versatile album. You have singing cuts like Marvin's Room, but then just rap bangers like Headlines, Hell Yeah, Fucking Right. And that versatility, I think, is what made this album so impactful and really influential for the future of rap. Now, that's not to say that no rapper before Drake has ever made a melodic rap album or fused singing and R&B elements with rap. Lauryn Hill existed before Drake, Kanye existed, Andre 3000, all those people genre bended plenty of times. But I do think Drake definitely popularized it even more, or even more so revitalized it for the youth of rap and inspired rappers to create more melodic rap. I have Kendrick Lamar for 2012. It was another super easy pick. I'm not gonna lie, the first 3 years for this were very easy to determine. He released Good Kid, Mad City, which in my opinion is the best rap album of all time. So clearly for me, no other rap album of that year could stack up against it. Now, what makes Good Kid, Mad City so great for me, there's two main factors that then balloon into a bunch of other great things about this album. And that's the replayability of this album and the concept. Looking at how Kendrick was able to balance both of those, usually you don't get that. Usually it's either you have a super strong conceptual album that's not quite as replayable, or you have a super replayable, fun album that you could always listen to, but the concept might not be as strong. Kendrick was able to balance both of those perfectly on this album, and that is so impressive to me. And he did that by having songs like Mad City, which you could listen to all the time, Swimming Pools, listen to all the time, but then also Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst, which is a super complicated track with amazing storytelling. You got Kendrick rapping from different perspectives in that one song, the beat switch, everything, all the symbolism in that song, but it extends to the entire album. The storytelling on this project is some of the best I've ever heard. It feels genuinely like you're watching a movie or reading a book, where you could just narratively see where Kendrick is going with the project as he tells the story of what it was like growing up in Compton. I love the emotion poured into this album, and I also think this was the project where Kendrick really demonstrated the versatility he has within rapping, where he has all these different voices and moods that he could go to and utilize, whether that be his more aggressive, brash voice that you see on a Backseat Freestyle, the voice crack voice, which became iconic on a Mad City. You have that high-pitched, high-toned voice on a Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe, even just a more subdued, relaxed voice on Sing About Me. All these different moods and tones and voices and all sorts of stuff. 2013 is where it starts getting difficult. I narrowed it down to 3 artists: Drake, Kanye, and A$AP Rocky. All 3 of them dropped great projects this year. With Drake, it was Nothing Was the Same. With Kanye, it was Yeezus. And with A$AP Rocky, it was Long Live A$AP. So I tried comparing each of these albums. So looking at Yeezus, I think this album had the highest highs. If you're looking at a Bound 2, a New Slaves, and On Sight, a Blood on the Leaves, like I think those are the best out of the best when you compare all three of these albums and all the songs that are in them. But I also think the lows are a bit lower. I think it's not as consistent of an album compared to the other two. And it's not like the highs on, Long Live ASAP and Nothing Was the Same aren't like that far behind Yeezus' highs. So I did take out Yeezus and Kanye. Now it was between ASAP Rocky and Drake. And I mean, honestly, it's a toss-up, but I do prefer Rocky's album over Drake's album this year. You have so many classic Rocky songs. You have Goldie, you have fucking Problems, you have One Train, you have Fashion Killer, you have Level. I mean, you have so many songs that are just iconic, that are some of Rocky's best. I feel like that has to be awarded. 2014, I was stuck between two. You had J. Cole and Freddie Gibbs. J. Cole releasing 2014 Forest Hills Drive, and then Freddie Gibbs releasing Pinata. Both of these albums are the best in each rapper's catalog. There's nothing you could really say to knock either of them. And so ultimately what I narrowed it down to was, even though 2014 is in the name of J. Cole's album, it was released during the tail end of that year, and so its impact and run was mainly in the following year, 2015. And so for that reason, I did give the edge to Freddie Gibbs, who released his album earlier in the year. It had its run in 2014. Specifically on Pinata and what made that album so great, you have the production from Madlib, which never fails. Also, Freddie Gibbs really suited that style of production. This was also the project where people became aware of Freddie Gibbs, or at least large in part, and realized that he literally has some of the best rapping performances to offer, from, his delivery, his flows, his lyrics, some of the best rapping you're gonna hear of this modern era of rap, 2010s into the 2020s. 2015 was an insanely difficult year to decide. I mean, you had the carryover from J. Cole with 2014 Forest Hills Drive. Then you had Drake, which had an insane year. I mean, from his rap beef with Meek Mill, which he won, releasing an all-time classic like Back to Back. He released one of his best projects, and if you're reading this, it's Too Late, which had some of his best rapping performances and one of his best singing cuts in Jungle. That song is one of my favorite Drake songs. He also had his collab album with Future, What a Time to Be Alive, which was another solid album. Speaking of Future, he released like 4 great projects this year, one of them being DS2, which is one of the best trap albums of all time. So all three of those rappers, J. Cole, Drake, and Future, make a strong case to win the best rap artist of 2015. But none of them dropped to Pimp a Butterfly. And that kind of seems crazy that one album is going to beat out everything that Drake did that year, everything Future did that year. I mean, he literally released 4 albums of quality, but it's not To Pimp a Butterfly, which is one of the best albums ever. That album is just different. It won a Pulitzer Prize. Like, that doesn't happen. That's not something that occurs for the average rapper. It's just a completely unique, different experience where I think it has to win, or Kendrick has to win for that album. 2016, you can go with Drake for releasing Views, which was one of the most popular albums, I mean, honestly, probably ever, but of that year as well. I always thought that album was a little overrated, though. I'm going to go with Kanye West for releasing The Life of Pablo, which I think was the better album of that year and the best album of that year. You have some of Kanye's best rapping performances, whether that be with a St. Pablo or a No More Parties in LA. You have Father Stretch My Hands, one of his most iconic songs, maybe the best beat drop I've ever heard. Ultra Light Beam, one of his best intros. You have a lot of bests on this album. 2017, you could go with Tyler for Flower Boy. You could go with Jay-Z for 444. You could even go with like an Uzi for releasing Love is Rage 2, which I think is the best SoundCloud era rap album. Even maybe throwing like an XXXTentacion there. But ultimately, I don't think there was an album better than Damn that year, and that was by Kendrick Lamar. So once again, Kendrick is going to take it here. Similar to Good Kid, Mad City, I think this album does a great job of having a concept and replayability. You have some of my favorite songs from that album, whether that be like a Duckworth, a Pride, a Fear. Duckworth actually might be the best song to ever close out an album. I'm not going to lie. How that song ends with it going in reverse and starting back at the beginning gives me chills literally every time without fail. There were some people who hated on Damn, especially when it first came out. I feel like there was a group that thought Kendrick was going too mainstream. I always thought that was kind of stupid. To me, Damn was just Kendrick exploring even more, expanding his sound even more. And if he did that through using certain mainstream elements, that's perfectly fine. All you want, or maybe not all you want, but one of the main things you want for an artist is to explore their sound and explore music so that their music never gets old and it doesn't get stale. And that's what Kendrick was doing with this project. And a perfect example of that is Pride, where if you listen to To Pimp a Butterfly, Good Kid, Mad City, you never thought Kendrick would be hitting those high notes that he hit on Pride. And that is why I love Damn. 2018 was a difficult year. You had Mac Miller with Swimming, you had Travis Scott with Astroworld, you had Pusha T with Daytona, and also winning his rap beef against Drake, releasing The Story of Adidon, one of the craziest diss tracks I've ever heard. And then you also have Kanye with his Wyoming run. He released Ye, he released Kids See Ghosts, did the production on Daytona. So there's a lot of options that you could go to. Right away, I think I am going to take out Travis Scott and Mac Miller. I feel like their albums were both a little bit worse. Still phenomenal, but worse than Pusha T's Daytona, which I think is like a top 10 album of the decade of the 2010s. On top of that, you also have the beef. So I do think Pusha T gets the edge over Travis Scott and Mac Miller. Then it's between Kanye and Pusha T. If this was only off of rapping ability, Pusha T would probably win. But considering total artistry, which includes production, and considering Kanye literally produced the album that made Pusha T have such a great year in Daytona, I do feel like you have to give it to Kanye. Kanye helped Pusha T have that success that he had. So I can't get over that factor and put Pusha T above Kanye. Kanye literally is part of the reason why Pusha T had such a good year. And on top of that, you also have Ye, you also have Kids See Ghosts, where we saw, Violent Crimes, Ghost Town, Reborn, Fourth Dimension, all sorts of great songs. Also, though, that's not to devalue what Pusha T did on Daytona. The lyrics were phenomenal. Tyler, the Creator, is going to take 2019 for releasing Igor. Now, Igor's not a rap album, so once again, if this was based off of only rapping ability, Tyler wouldn't even be eligible this year, but it's based off total artistry, so he's most definitely eligible, and he's most definitely going to win for releasing the best album of that year of any rap artist. Tyler threw us a complete curveball on this album, reinvented his sound. He did show some elements of that high-pitched singing voice in earlier projects, but not to the level it was on Igor. There were so many highlight tracks on this album. You got A Boy Is a Gun, Are We Still Friends, Earthquake. I could go on and on. There's so many amazing tracks on here. The production is beautiful with that synth work. It's the best album of the year. It was super unique, super unexpected, and made the first listening experience that much more exciting and special. 2020, you can go with Freddie Gibbs again, who released Alfredo. That album definitely did have the best rapping on it of the year, but honestly, I'm going with Pop Smoke. The impact that this man had in that 1 year time frame in 2020 was ridiculously impressive. He released two very, very solid projects, one of those being Meet the Woo 2, the other one being his debut studio album, Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon. And I mean, he came in onto the scene with this unique, deep voice that was perfect for drill music. I feel like he revitalized drill, made it much more popular than it would have been. He had everyone in New York in the drill scene trying to sound like him and duplicate his voice. And honestly, I really appreciate how he experimented with this subgenre, really adding those melodic and more specifically R&B elements into drill music. You could see that with songs like What You Know About Love. And that experimentation was especially important for drill, which I think has a tendency to get a little stale, a little repetitive. 2021, I think there's three options. You could go Kanye for Donda, you could go J. Cole for The Offseason, or Tyler, the Creator, for Call Me If You Get Lost. I'm going to go with Tyler, the Creator. I think that was the best album out of the three, had the best rapping performances, although it is close with J. Cole's The Offseason. 2022, shout out to Denzel Curry. He's going to come in second place. He released Melt My Eyes, See Your Future. But first place has to go to JID. The Forever Story, I still think, is the best album of the 2020s decade. This album is still one of my most listened to projects. It never left my rotation. You got great storytelling cuts like 2007, Crack Sandwich, Clever Bars, everything you want in a rap album. 2023 is definitely going to be my hottest take. I'm going with Lil Yachty over Danny Brown, over Travis Scott. Now, shout out Danny Brown. He released two phenomenal projects that year. Shout out Travis Scott. He dropped the best rap album of that year. I think Utopia was my #1 rap album. But Lil Yachty released an album outside of the rap genre that I think was better than Utopia, and we could include that because, once again, basing this off of total artistry. Lil Yachty released Let's Start Here, which was, completely saved his career. He totally reinvented his sound by switching genres. He switched to psychedelic rock, and he did so successfully. There were other rappers that tried to do this. Lil Wayne tried creating a rock album, horrible. Kid Cudi tried creating a rock album, horrible. Lil Yachty tried, successful. So already there, that's very impressive. You're gonna get a lot of points from me. I love the vocal effects that Yachty used. I think it matched the production perfectly and kind of added his own spin on this already existing genre. And the production was, amazing. On par with Utopia for sure, which was Utopia's strongest factor. But on top of releasing the album of the year, in my opinion, Lil Yachty then proceeded to go on an amazing singles run where he returned to rap, releasing songs like Strike, Holster, Slide. Even his AMP Cypher freestyle was so good that it ended up becoming a song because so many fans were asking him to make it into a song. And finally, 2024, shout out Quadeca for releasing my favorite album of the year, but I think the best rap artist of this year was Kendrick Lamar. When you factor in GNX, which was a top 5 album for me, plus being the winner of the biggest rap beef in the history of the genre against Drake, I think that puts him way over the edge. He is the #1 rapper. You have great songs like Euphoria, Not Like Us, coming from that beef. Even Meet the Grams. That is the most diabolical diss track I've ever heard. Speaking of first listening experiences, the first time I listened to that song, chills. Just jaw dropped, everything. It was a crazy experience. It's easily Kendrick Lamar. That's the entire list. Goodbye.